Hi, everyone. I wanted to speak to you today about how to keep your head whilst everybody loses theirs over generative AI. I don't know about you, but my social media is full of posts like this, and it's really stressing me out. Reading about OpenAI releasing swarms of intelligent bees onto the internet, changing it forever, it makes me stressed. Does anybody else feel the same? Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And I probably shouldn't admit to feeling stressed, particularly with that lovely introduction, because I have been working with machine learning for quite a while. Like a lot of you, I didn't start off as a video games. I didn't start off as a product person. I started off making video games, and then I moved into management consulting. And it was there that I realized that AI was the game-changing technology of the future, and I had to be a part of it, and I wanted to build it responsibly and well. Since then, I've been a product person in commercial AI labs and also been a product person for machine learning-powered products. Over the course of my career, I've seen some really interesting technology be launched. When it was my time in video games, it was the iPhone. When I moved into consulting, AlphaGo, it beat the world champion in Go. And then the invention of things like transformers. And in recent years, it's been foundation models. These are the models that power generative AI. And it's really easy to feel overwhelmed when all of this technology is being released onto the market. But ignore the bluster, because most people also feel very overwhelmed and don't know where to start. I can tell you that because as part of this talk, I wanted to share insight from 3 communities I'm a part of. I'm a member of Wits End. That's an executive community. It's full of C-suite advisors, people like that, people who ultimately decide what a business is going to do and how the money gets spent. I'm also a member of Productland. That's VP of Product Plus. These are the product buses, and they set the product strategy. And finally, Women in Product UK. This is a general PM community full of people doing the work and making products that are great. I wanted to do this not just so that I could tell you how the industry as a whole is thinking about generative AI, but also how different levels of the organization are responding to it. And whenever I share an insight from here, you'll see that pink clipboard appear so that you know that I'm quoting something from it. So generative AI is coming. How do we keep our heads? I'm going to walk you through what generative AI can and cannot do, deciding where and how to use generative AI. And finally, I'm going to give you 5 steps to get generative AI into your product. Let's get started. What is generative AI? Well, it's a machine learning model that can create content on its own. That might be text, image, or audio. It does this by learning representations on really large amounts of data. GPT-3 was trained on 45 terabytes of text. That is absolutely huge. Your average startup cannot afford to build this model. But that's okay, because that's a foundation model. And the way that we use them is we tune them to do the task that we want, and we prompt them for the answer that we want to get. You're probably familiar with prompting because you've used ChatGPT or asked Midjourney to make you a picture. And this technology, we've been working towards it for years, but there's just this magical moment where things seem to have clicked into place. And for the first time, AI just seems to be working differently. It feels creative. It can draw a bowl of soup that is a portal to another dimension, and it actually looks pretty good. Generative AI also feels magical because of some of the things it does well. I really like this story about Alex. He was really unwell, and no doctor could figure out what was wrong with him. His mum, in frustration, put his symptoms into ChatGPT. It diagnosed him. He had a simple surgery, and now he is fit and well. Because of these powerful stories, it keeps appearing in the news. To give you some sense of how far beyond the realm of computer science nerds this conversation has moved, the Pope is talking about it. And because it seems so human, so simple to use, the assumption from non-technical leaders is that you should put this into your product as soon as possible before you lose your competitive advantage. I can tell you that every single executive is feeling huge pressure right now to include generative AI within their product. It's seen as a route to massively increase productivity. This graph shows the stock price of NVIDIA. They're a company that make the chips that train a lot of AI models. And that almost doubling of stock price is the market's expectation of how much demand is going to be created by all of those boards asking for generative AI. Over half of the product leaders I spoke to are also feeling the pressure to use generative AI in their companies. However, only a really small number of ICs have been asked for it. So if you are a manager, congratulations on shielding your team from board pressures. However, if you have not had this request yet, know that it is coming soon, and that is why I wanted to speak to you today. All of this hype made me think of 2012. I was a management consultant, and it wasn't long after mobile phones had become the iPhone, and the App Store had been launched, and everyone was starting to think about how to react to what we were calling digital disruption. And big companies were really scared that startups were going to eat their lunch. They would come to us in a state of panic. The board says, I've got to have a mobile phone app. And I really remember this one interaction because a water exec came to us, and he said the similar story. The board says, I have to have a mobile phone app, help me. And we thought about it for a bit, and I said, okay, how about we include your customers' bills, they can see how much they're spending, how much they're using within their app. And he responded with, are you kidding me? It is 2012, our CRM systems aren't fully digitized yet. There is no way that I can put this within my mobile app. And we spun round and round, different ideas, none of them were viable, and in exasperation I said to him, what have you got that we can put in this app? A PDF of our company's annual report. Genuinely, this is what was in their first version of their mobile phone app. So take some comfort, because clearly their users did not want this product. So it's not the first time that we've had a big hype moment where we've scrambled to use a piece of technology. But we have lots of mobile phone apps today. They're all really useful. How ready is generative AI for prime time? It is not perfect. It can do things that a human would know are wrong. Microsoft News website, they fired their human editors, and they replaced it with generative AI. When the NBA player Brandon Hunter died, it wrote an article, and it said he was useless. I can't imagine how hurtful that would have been to the family, but it's also so obviously wrong. All of us know that that is incorrect. Generative AI can also be really dangerous. An eating disorder charity in the US fired their support line workers. I am spotting a pattern here. They replaced it with a generative AI chatbot. Oh, I think I've just lost signal. They replaced it with a generative AI chatbot, and it was a dieting chatbot, so it immediately gave out calorie reduction advice to people with an eating disorder. Absolutely dangerous for people with that condition. So what is most confusing to me about these two examples is how egregious these errors are. I could give you a whole talk on the nuances of building machine learning models, but you don't need to know that this is wrong. As product people, we know that we need to make sure that we're building products that serve our users' needs. We know that if we push something into production, we should check that it's working as we expect. So in the examples that I showed you, they should have been caught with basic monitoring. They should have been caught with user testing, designing to serve a particular product need. So if you take one thing away from my talk today, it is just this, my key message, that the basics remain the same. It does not matter that you are using this fancy new technology. What problem are you solving? Why would a user come to you just because you're using generative AI? And if you're optimizing a non-customer-facing product, is this worthwhile? Is this something that I should be doing? So let's see where we should use it. First of all, you are not going to be building a foundation model from scratch. Right now, there are tons of options out there. You can access it via a platform. Big tech spin up lots of services around them and the infrastructure that supports them. Or you can query a model directly. Most of these models, they have fairly similar capabilities, so you're all going to be querying roughly the same thing, which means that everyone can do what you are doing. So it might be that you can carve out a differentiator and take competitive advantage, but all things being equal, your competitors will be able to build the same thing as you. So how do you decide where to play? In this situation, I like the Kano model. You're probably familiar with it, But on the x-axis, we have feature sophistication, and on the y-axis, we have customer satisfaction. And onto this, you can map your product features. So we have must-haves. It doesn't matter how hard it is to build. For me as a customer, it must be there for me to use it. A good example of this is that I wouldn't use a mobile banking app that isn't secure. You have performance features. Satisfaction scales linearly with these. And then you have delighters. They don't need to be there, but when they are, they just make me so happy. An example of this could be a biometric login for that mobile phone app. It's just so much better than me trying to remember my password and enter a text message code. When I see it, it's very delightful. Because humans are humans, over time, delighters become must-haves. We become accustomed to having them there. Our competitors copy those features, and so they become something that has to be in there. It's one of the reasons why we're constantly innovating to improve our products. So for some products or features, generative AI is going to be table stakes. It's going to be a must-have. It might sound scary, but it's actually really comforting to know, because everybody is finding their way with this new technology. You can actually watch what your competitors are doing and to figure out what's working and what's not. If you see your customer satisfaction ratings plummeting and people are piling onto a product that seems to have a generative AI feature that's core to its functionality, that's a must-have. You need to pay attention. On the flip side, you might be able to build a generative AI differentiator. In this situation, likely you probably have proprietary data that allows you to build something unique. And if you can take that and you can use it and you can make something really useful and that's easily defensible, you've got yourself a differentiated delighter. That's the theory. What are businesses doing today? About 20% of businesses today are using generative AI somewhere within their business. They're mainly using it for customer support chatbots, for blog material generation, and for marketing. There's a little bit of summarization and classification happening there too. I heard one example from a company where they put generative AI into their customer service chatbot, and automated self-service completion rates went from 40% to 90%. So there are huge areas for efficiency to be had here. But I am very aware that we're venturing into that meat robot territory we talked about earlier, and I do have strong opinions on that, so see me in the bar later if you want to talk about it more. It does, though, make sense that if generative AI isn't the core value proposition for your product, you want to try it in lower visibility areas first. You don't want to be experimenting for the first time with this technology, which might not always be 100% accurate in the hands of your discerning customers. Now, given most people are using generative AI in a chatbot-type interaction, I actually wanted to zoom in a little bit on the interaction of conversational interfaces. If you read the tech press today, you'd think all that we want is to chat with our technology as if it's a human being. And maybe in some situations, but I'm kind of waiting to be proven that that's the case for everything. And the reason being is think about who we are today. We're glued to our mobile phones, we have really low attention, and we like really quick and snappy interactions. If I want to order something, I tap a button. If I have a notification, I want a quick response. And it seems to be this assumption that we're going to use generative AI by talking to absolutely everything, and I'm not entirely sure that that's how people are going to adopt the technology. We don't all have unlimited user research budget, but luckily for us, we can watch what other people are doing. So this is Salesforce's Einstein chatbot. It is a customer service chatbot. And in this example, in the right-hand panel, the advisor is asking it for help to answer the customer's query in the middle panel. It's a really informationally dense environment. I'm wondering how this is going to evolve, because potentially the advisor is going to miss something. Maybe the chatbot gets it right so often, they just click that button so that they get their bonus for serving a lot of customer queries. Watching how this evolves is going to be really useful to give us an idea of how people start to use generative AI in their day-to-day interaction. However, what about smaller humans? This is Roblox. They have 60 million users worldwide, and most of them are children. They have made a generative AI chatbot for their game environment. You can talk to it and tell it what you want the game to look like. I think this is really interesting because children have not been primed with 2 decades of mobile phone usage like we have. And so this gives you a more strong indicator of how people who haven't been primed by older technologies are going to respond to Gen AI in the future. It's also really interesting to think about how our future demographic behaviors will change. So I've covered some really important areas on what to watch around conversational interfaces, how people are using generative AI, and I've also described how to think about positioning AI as a product feature using the Kano model. In the last part of my talk, I'm going to tell you how to put generative AI into your product. This composes of 5 steps. Because the basics stay the same, some of the things I talk about are fundamental to any product. Some are machine learning specific, and some are generative AI specific. I'm color coding them for reference. So step 1, find your problem. Use that Kano model. Look for something which is low profile and high impact. You want something that you have lots of control over, and it's an area for inefficiency. This is a really good place to apply machine learning. You do not want it to be part of your core customer-facing experience for this first foray. Given a lot of people are using customer service chatbots, let's take that as our working example. Once you have your problem to solve, you move on to evaluating your data. Data is core to any successful machine learning solution. If you do not have it, or if it is not properly managed, you will not be able to build good machine learning on top of it. In fact, this is a reason why a lot of product leaders are not using generative AI within their products right now. They're actually working on improving their data. So now is the time to buy your data engineers a coffee. In our customer service bot example, if you've spoken to a live agent recently, there is a reason why at the end of that conversation they ask you, "Did I solve your problem for you?" It's not just because they're working on their NPS score. It's because this is the perfect machine learning data set. I have the question that the person came in with, the answer they were given, and whether it was right. This is the kind of data that you want to collect. If you don't have it, then you're going to need to collect it. And you need to ask yourself, are your management practices in place? Are you collecting it properly? Are you storing it and transforming it in the ways that will be required for machine learning? And most importantly, are you governing it as you should? If you are collecting user data, they need to know about it. They need to consent. You need to make sure you're deleting it when you should, and you need to make sure that you're limiting access to only the people required to access that data. Once you have your data all buttoned up, you can move on to deciding whether you build or buy your solution. There are lots of standard product principles here, but there are a few important things that I want to call out, so I'm going to break them into a few points. First of all, when you are deciding on build versus buy, you are essentially deciding between tuning your own generative AI or using a third party who will do a lot of the work for you. In this example, for build, we are tuning our own chatbot starting from ChatGPT. You'll then need to serve it yourself and manage all of the infrastructure that is around it. With a third party, a lot of that work is done for you. In this example, you would plug your data into Zendesk knowledge base, and it would do a lot of the heavy lifting. So as you can imagine, if you're tuning things, you need some specific skills. You need machine learning engineers. You need ML infrastructure people. And there is a skills shortage right now for these skills. So it might be that you just don't have them available to you. And so you might say to yourself, cool, well, the answer is obvious. I will use a third party. But unfortunately, you need to think about how much it costs. Because if you are paying someone else to do a job for you, generally you pay a premium. And this is definitely a premium product right now. So if you are going down this route, you are going to have to pay extra for a third-party solution. Even if you are building your own solution, you're going to need to pay for the infrastructure for the model and for the queries that you send as well. So you'll want to model out which one makes financial sense for your business. Finally, it's so important. Think about data privacy. This is really crucial when you're talking about machine learning. And it comes about in 2 ways for generative AI. First of all, if you are training over private customer data, that data can be repeated by the model. You need to make sure that your data is sanitized. There are good materials out there on how to do this, but generally, Just don't go there. So private, sensitive data should not be going anywhere near your generative AI model. The second thing is, if you are sending your data to a third-party provider, they take that data, and often they use it to retrain that big foundation model to make it better. But that means that your information can now be sent to one of your competitors. That's IP leakage. And this is one of the reasons why VP of Product are also not using generative AI yet. They're worried about their ideas being stolen. Because of this, a lot of those providers are starting to offer on-premises solutions or privacy-preserving technology. And so you want to engage your security team to make sure that you're happy with the level of risk you're taking on, because this is all very new. A couple of watch-outs on build versus buy. The technology is moving really quickly, so make sure that you try not to lock yourself into a particular tech stack. If something changes, if something gets cheaper or faster or better, you want to be able to swap to it. And then finally, watch out for spiraling costs. If you build an amazing feature and people come to it, you need to make sure that that makes financial sense for you. Otherwise, you don't have a business. So once you've decided on your build versus buy, you move on to building a proof of concept. This is essentially like an MVP, but it's just testing the data part of the experience. You want to make sure that you're getting the information out that you were expecting to. You're looking to make sure that the quality of the output is up to the standard that you want in production. This is the point when Microsoft should have spotted that their AI editor was making mistakes. In this example of a customer service chatbot, you'll bring your customer service team in. They'll check that the answers are correct and make sure that the tone of voice and policy is being adhered to for your business. And again, I know I'm laboring the point, but is the quality good enough for the effort? This might be a really laborious process, so you need to keep an eye on that investment and cost and make sure it's worthwhile. And then finally, once you're happy, you scale it to production. It's just like any other service. But again, keep an eye on those costs, because if people flock to it, they're going to start using it and you're going to start paying for it. Once it's in production, keep an eye out for model drift. This is a technical term, so I'm going to go into a little bit more detail on this. Essentially, drift happens because behaviors change. It might be that your user demographic changes. They ask different questions, and therefore your model doesn't perform as well. It could be that the concept of your model changes. Perhaps customer service law changes, and your model is not sentient. You have to tell it that the law has changed, and until you do, the model will not be as good. There are technical approaches to monitoring machine learning models. All of us, though, as product people, can keep an eye on our business outcomes that we're expecting. In the case of our customer service bot, it's that self-service completion rate. If we start to see that drop, that might be a signal of drift, and we should definitely investigate it to see what's going on. I've linked to a really good primer on drift on this slide if you want to take a photo of that YouTube link. And also, if you want to go deeper, Shreya Shankar is an amazing researcher on machine learning ops. She writes a lot about monitoring generative AI in production. So if you want to go deep, I encourage you to read her work. So to recap, 5 steps to get generative AI into your product. Define the problem. Use that Kano model. Evaluate your data. Decide if you're going to build or buy. Build a proof of concept, and then scale it to production. So, simply put, that is the end of my talk, because it's not the kind of talk that goes out with a bang. I really wanted to demonstrate to you that using this technology does not take you away from your core product principles. So to summarize, yes, the hype is pretty real, but the product basics stay the same. Trust in yourself as a product person and apply your skills to this new technology. Focus on your data quality and test and learn and monitor that model once it's in production. Thank you, everyone, for your time. I'm really interested to see what you build with generative AI. If you'd like to talk further about this on LinkedIn, please get in touch with me. I'd love to discuss further. Thank you so much for your time.